Zero Mark here. Time for the Clock Rewinds event preview. So welcome to your bi-weekly Kill Week Bosses for Hours and Hours on End event. I'm not going to talk too much about the changes they've made to the Commander events and the new Reforged stuff because I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas and I was in a pretty good mood, and then I don't like the direction that Commander events have been going for the last 3 or 4 events, and so I'm not going to talk too much about it. I will say it looks like there is one change that looks good to me. For every Crusade map completed, you earn solo overkill and ultra kill boss levels. So you defeat the map, and hopefully that'll help you skip a bunch of the junk low-level bosses. So that's a positive thing for me, because for me, anything that allows you to get to boss level 200 without having to fight through 150 weak bosses just forever was great. So I like that they're doing that. I still really dislike the overkill and ultra kill mechanic. The only purpose I saw for it was to allow people to skip levels, and then they took the level skipping out, and so then they left ultra kill in it, which makes no sense to me because I think it's just a bad gameplay mechanic. So let's look at the event deck for this week. The event deck's following the trend of the last few weeks. There hasn't been very many changes to the deck. They've been kind of using the same general deck over and over again. They've kind of been tweaking it a little bit to try and do something with it. I'm not sure. But this week, instead of the card being a single nuke, it now does nuke for 3 turns in a row. So 3 turns of nukes at 120,000% attack at the top rate. So it starts at 30,000 and goes to 120,000 instead of 50,000 to 200,000% like the last one did. But this one does it 3 turns in a row. And it gives you 4 light power gem 1s when you shoot it off. But this is a bad card for a commander event because having a nuke damage is terrible for the overkill and ultra kill mechanic because they're not huge attacks. And even if you have multiple of them going off at a time, each one counts as its own individual attack. So if the first one kills it, it's dead. You don't get the benefit of, say, the second one going off to get the overkill. And if you kill it with the nuke attack, then you can't do your attack that matches a bunch of gems to get your massive overkill. So this is a bad card for commander events, especially because those nukes go on for 3 turns, and so you have to be timing things right and figuring out how much your damage you're going to do so you don't accidentally kill the boss without getting your overkill. So not a good card for the commander event. That nuke attack is going to be not all that powerful even. So in general, not the greatest card in the world. Creates 4 light power gem 1s is okay, but every 6 turns, that's really not worth that much. The only benefit you're going to get from this card, like all the others, is the fact that it's empowered, and it has high base stats, so it's going to do massive damage just on base damage alone. Its battle skill is not good. The X13, also, on the face of it, looks like a good card, but turns out to be bad and weak and terrible, because you look at this and you say, oh, create 6 light power gem 4s. That's great. If you could use that with the old cards that use, if there's 4 power gem 4s on the board, they double the amount of power gems they create. You could use this and put that together with some of these old cards and build a really powerful deck. But wait, what's that thing right below it? It says cost 50 intensity. Last week they did cost 25 intensity. And the week before that they did cooldown, like the ability starts on cooldowns. You couldn't even use it for 6 turns. This one effectively starts on cooldown for 3 turns, because even if you have 2 of the support heroes and 5 event relics, you could only generate 45 intensity per turn, and it's on attack. So the first turn you can't get anything. The second turn, if you attack, you get 45 intensity. So you can't use this skill until at least after you've attacked twice on your 3rd turn. And then it's taking the intensity down, which is going to work against the nuke of the main event card, but I'm guessing people aren't going to really want to use that nuke anyway, so that's not that big of a deal. But having this cost of 50 intensity every 4 turns means you need to be generating probably 25 intensity at least every turn, which is going to force you to be carrying multiple event relics. You're going to need 3 or 4 relics, which maybe by the time we've cycled through this 3 or 4 times and you can get the free event relics from each event, or the cheap event relics, is useful. But right now, in order to get that and make this card useful for this event, you're going to have spend a whole mess of gems on relics or run a whole bunch of support cards. Because ideally, you'd want to have 2 of these guys in there giving you 12 Power Gem 4s to give you a really big attack, but that means you're going to need 100 intensity every 4 turns, which is 25 per turn. So just hugely expensive in terms of intensity to use, and just changes the dynamic of things. So this seems to be the direction they're going. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I guess we're going to have to adapt. Let's look at the support card. Support card down here. Sugar Plum Fairy creates 6 light gems. Remember, only once. Cooldown 4 turns, so you get 6 light gems now, and then 3 turns you get nothing. And it decreases damage taken for 2 turns by 20%. So that's decrease the damage by not very much for not very long, and then normal damage for a couple of turns. So this is a terrible battle skill, like useless. But all of the support cards, since they've made this change to these empowered cards, all of the support cards' battle skills have been essentially useless. And this is just another one. This is just not a card you're going to want to use in your deck. You're not going to want to use it for anything, except for this particular deck event where it has the 10 times and the 10 times, so a huge 100 times multiplier on a massive base stats. So after this event, this card's going to get dusted and just disappear and never be used again because its skills are so bad. It does create, but you have to use it this time around, right? Even though it's a terrible battle skill that does nothing, you have to use it because it has the, creates the light commander intensity. Increases it by 10 on attack. So you're going to have to run probably 2 of these if you want to run the X13, because you're going to need to build up the intensity because it costs intensity to use the X13. The ultra rare card, its battle skill is also pretty useless, which is another trend. Like, you haven't needed the ultra rare because the ultra rare isn't a very good card. None of them are very good cards. This one creates 2 light power gem 2s. Okay, that's okay, and places an exposed debuff on enemies for 2 turns, which makes them increases enemy damage taken by up to 20%, but that's based on intensity, right? And remember, you have to use the intensity for the X13, so you're not going to be building up intensity to use for the ultra rare, and for 2 turns you get extra damage, and then you get nothing for another 2 turns, and you get 2 light power gem 2s, just nothing here that really screams at you, oh, this is a really valuable, useful card. It just seems to be not that great. But that's the way that all of these cards are. Not that great battle skills, huge base stats, massive multipliers, so you have to use them because the old cards don't have the same kind of multipliers in them. So, as usual, I would guess the best thing would be to combine some older cards that have good battle skills with these new ones, but they're trying to make that impossible by adding in this intensity cost and some of these other things to make it so that you can't do that. So they're trying to force you away from being able to use the old cards, even though they said what they wanted to do was encourage deck building. Well, maybe in the future, when we have 3 or 4 iterations of a light commander event, then you'll be able to mix and match those cards. But they're trying to essentially devalue and make it impossible to use all of the old cards, which I find kind of frustrating. That, the nerf to the so-called ultra pack, which is like the ultra terrible pack now. Some of those things have made me just not had the best Christmas spirit about Network of late. So that's the basics of this deck. I don't really know how to put this deck together because it just seems like it's a mess of terrible battle skills. So I would find an old light gem generator somewhere and maybe mix that in with a couple of X13s and a couple of support cards just to try and get the intensity up so you can dump 12 power gem 4s on the board, and that alone with the huge multipliers that the X13 card gets should be giving you pretty good damage. But I don't think the main event card is worth anything. I don't think that the ultra card is worth using. I would completely skip those 2 cards and find some older cards that are better. But I hope that you guys have a better opinion about the Commander events than I do, because I've not been a fan of them the past few iterations, and they seem to have settled in on this system that I really don't like. So I hope you guys have fun playing the Clock Rewinds event this weekend, because I will probably, again, be taking the week off because I just don't enjoy massively overkilling weak bosses for multiple hours. Until next time.